Thank you and good morning. My name is Don Workman. I am a trustee of Keuka College, and we are so proud to be hosting this leadership summit. This morning's opening speaker is Rick Legon, and for these last 5 years, Rick has been serving as the 4th president of the Association of Governing Boards. Now, the Association of Governing Boards is a bit of a misleading title, I believe, for this prestigious national organization, because not only does Rick's group work with trustees and chairs of governing boards, but also with college and university presidents and other leaders on the administrative side of the equation. I believe it's fair to say that Rick is one of the few individuals in the United States who has both the ear and the confidence of college and university presidents, as well as board chairs and trustees. Under Rick's innovative leadership, AGB has initiated many robust counseling services that they provide to the members. How many members do we have?
40,000.
40,000 members of the Association of Governing Boards. So, and that means every trustee of every college, of every university is a member. Right. And beyond the consulting services, which are held either by phone or in person, the association has also initiated within the last year a new higher ed executive recruitment service. And Rick tells me that within a year, that recruitment service, and this would be for college presidents or provosts perhaps at that level, within a year they have become the #2 search service in the country. His ability to network between colleges and universities is well understood. And now, as it should be, the association is branching out internationally. And Rick and his colleagues are available to come to your college or university and make presentations, help you with challenges and opportunities that you may be seeing. I'm not going to take any more of his time. I asked him what I should tell you about him personally. He said, "At heart, I am a U.S. cowboy wannabe. I spend my vacations riding horseback and fly fishing in the western U.S. So while he may appear to be very distinguished and accomplished as he is, he's a cowboy at heart." Rick, welcome.
Thank you very much, Don, for that kind welcome. I only wish my mother was here to hear it. And my board of directors. Let me first welcome or extend my welcome to those of you who have come from so many countries, who've traveled so far. Your ability to ignore the clock and to have gone through yesterday's extensive programming and today, I have to applaud that. I recognize a number of you who've been participants at meetings of the Association of Governing Boards as recently as this past April in Los Angeles, and it's good to reacquaint myself with you. Thank you for doing that. Hopefully you'll continue to be participating with us. So I thank you for the invitation to participate at this very prestigious and important summit meeting of this organization. I want to especially thank my colleague Joe Burke for inviting me to be with you and for his keen understanding of the role that governing boards play especially in international partnerships and across higher education in the States and abroad. But I also want to acknowledge Joe's, and as you know, Joe's leaving his post is at Keuka, but I want to acknowledge his leadership of the college and the quality that he's brought not only to his own fine institution, but he really is a gentleman and a leader who's highly respected in higher education. Joe, congratulations. Joe also has, which is important to me, a really committed board of trustees. Don is just an example, and there are a couple of others of their board colleagues who are at this meeting. And for board members to participate beyond the normal course of scheduled board meetings, to me, suggests that there's a level of commitment that serves Keuka well, but it's something that I really encourage board members to do, to be engaged, to be aware, to participate beyond the regularly scheduled meetings. So, Joe, thank you for including me in this. Also want to thank Brother Aguiza from De La Salle University, who, as you know, is the chair of the organization, and my good buddy Ninat, who, with whom I've established a good relationship, who serves as secretary. What I'm going to do over these next few minutes, if that's okay with you, is share some thoughts about my views about international education opportunities, and also talk about some of the challenges that I see related to this important worldwide initiative, and look at those challenges, focus on them somewhat from the policy and governance perspective. And then I intend, and with the chair's permission, to open this up for to hear from you, and either to get your thoughts and comments on anything I may have provoked by way of your own thinking, but also to try to be responsive to any questions you may have. But let me begin with a brief story. When my wife and I, Fran is in the back and she's with us, had the opportunity a couple of years ago, a couple of summers ago, to travel to China. We were escorted through Beijing and to the Great Wall and to other landmarks by a very, very, very impressive high school junior. She was a junior at the time, from China, who, along with her sister and her mother, was living in Singapore because of the better schooling at the K through to the pre-higher education years that the family determined that she and her sister could receive in preparation for what they anticipated would be admittance and attendance at either one of the handful of top echelon Chinese research universities, or perhaps applying to a prominent research institution somewhere else in the world, and for them the United States was a primary option. Yaki Nu, that's her name, is a young woman of impressive intellect and talent. If she was here, she'd be critiquing my speech. She speaks 5 languages fluently, and she did so at the time we knew her as a high school junior. She's a concert-level pianist and plays several other musical instruments, for me the most notable one being, and I don't know the name of it, but the guitar-like looking instrument that's used in traditional Chinese opera. She is as comfortable in the sciences as she is in the languages, and history and politics are also among her interests. She has a very quick wit, and I can tell you personally that she has an abundant appetite. Yaki's perception of American higher education, as we got to know her, was framed by Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. Now, each of those is a wonderful and world-class institution, and each conveys a special brand which is attractive to international students and their families. Failure to gain admission to any of these institutions was just not an option for Yaki and her family. Attaining admittance to one of the world's leading institutions was the family objective. Now, much of our time in China was spent introducing the idea that quality education in the United States was not limited to Ivy League institutions, as excellent as each of those institutions may be. Certainly, I said in a number of presentations. America's 3,300 four-year institutions include among them more than a few that have a right fit for Yaki and her many friends who seek to come to the United States for their higher education, and to students from other countries seeking admission to a U.S. college or university, among them Keuka College. Data from IIE, the International Institute of Education, show that 62% of the students enrolling from abroad in U.S. institutions attend one of just 186 institutions that each enrolls over 1,000 international students, meaning that in the States, there are only 186 institutions, colleges and universities, that hit the threshold of at least 1,000 institutions from other countries. So clearly, there's capacity across the entirety of the U.S. system of higher education to accommodate students from your institutions. Overall, international students comprise about 4% of the total enrollment in colleges and universities in the States. Now this fall, Yaki will become a senior at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, majoring in international economics with a minor in international politics. She plans to stay in the States for graduate work, and she returns each summer to China or Singapore for professional internships. And after graduate school, I have no doubt that Yaki will likely return to Singapore or mainland China and bring the benefits of her U.S. education to her homeland. Now, I introduce Yaki to you, first because Fran and I are proud of her, and also as a somewhat typical example of the nearly 700, and Jeff pointed this number out yesterday, 700,000 students who come to the States from abroad to study at the undergraduate and graduate levels, and many, if not most of whom, return to contribute to the economic development of their home country after receiving their degrees in the United States. Now, 4 of the top 10 countries, in terms of the total number of that 700,000 of students who come to the United States, are members of ASAIHL. The numbers of students now able to come to the United States institutions from abroad is trending upwards, as our post-9/11 student visa restriction issues have been relaxed to a certain degree over the last several years. Now, meanwhile, in the last academic year, there were fewer than 300,000 students from the U.S. who studied abroad. A number that, while increasing, demonstrates the need for our institutions and our system of financing education abroad to be more accommodating to American students, and thus affording them the opportunity shared by the many more students coming into colleges and universities here in the States. The history of international education, as was also mentioned yesterday by several speakers, extends back many centuries to when scholars traveled widely to learn from peers. In fact, that's what historically defined international education in an earlier era. Now, more recently, institutions in the States and abroad have been aggressive in formalizing relationships that focus on academic and research exchanges and student learning opportunities. Yet it has clearly been at the faculty level where exchanges and research programs have served as the drivers, the motivators of international academic exchange. In higher education, as with business, we have truly moved to a global community. In fact, in a significant way, higher education is the facilitator of a global community. International education initiatives are part of the U.S.'s international economic policy for both the short and the long run. While few, if any, institutions from abroad have established formal programs or campuses in the States, it's become increasingly common, as some of you know, for U.S. institutions to develop programs and even build rather significant campuses across the globe. From University City to newly established academic centers in China, India, and other countries in this organization, there's an increasing presence of American institutions and that form of partnership seems to be thriving for a number of our colleges and universities and hopefully our countries. The questions for us to consider are related to the opportunities and the risks that shape international higher education partnerships, especially for those institutions that are less likely to build campuses abroad. And for my organization, AGB, that means asking what are the policy implications that need to be considered by institution leadership, those being presidents, CEOs, faculty, and governing boards, in order to make a wise investment and decisions that benefit student learning, that fit into the university's financial model, and that are clearly related to the overall mission of that particular college and university, or university. In fact, and some of you were there last evening, a very wonderful opportunity for AGB and the Thai Governance Association to sign a formal agreement between our two organizations, and which we hope will provide opportunities for mutual exchanges of information and programming in issues related to governance between our two organizations and our two countries. Now, of course, while we live in a period of global collaboration, we also face international economic competition. It's actually a very unique social and economic environment in which we live. We have competition and cooperation going on simultaneously and at unparalleled levels. The world's finances are so intertwined that national financial models are fully dependent on international cooperation. The worldwide recession of 2008 and 2009 is a clear reminder of a global economy, and the real story of that now famous book and movie, I hope you've seen it, Too Big to Fail, was the avoidance of a worldwide, not just a financial calamity in the States, but a worldwide financial collapse. The multiple international financial organizations recognize the interdependence of human, financial, and capital resources, as well as climate initiatives. And what happens in Greece is going to happen to affects all of the countries represented in this room. The early part of this new century has also demonstrated that we live in a global village that's connected by instant communications and social networking. The recent Arab Spring in the Middle East and North Africa clearly demonstrates the impact of the internet and social media and the quest for independence among the increasingly young populations in those countries. It's an age group informed more by instant communication and information and less by state-controlled news. Today's news is instantaneous and transparent. The related need to understand international culture, history, finance, and language go without saying. The world can be fundamentally changed in a very short period of time, and we need to be sure that our students and business and policy leaders are appropriately engaged and informed in the language and the culture of globalism. There's a hunger for freedom and individual opportunity and success, and a parallel need for that agenda to be supported by an education system that recognizes and supports our global society. The surge in freedom movements is a reflection of the competition of ideas, in the case of some Arab nations, in a period of vast and unfettered information resources. All of our students need to be aware of the roots of change, of the opportunities that can result through international educational opportunity. For example, one thing that I worry about when it relates to the students in our colleges and universities is that our students may only have a limited understanding of what's driven the dramatic changes we've been witnessing across Muslim nations. Failure to understand the inherent expectations of their fellow world citizens is a clear demonstration of the need for shared learning and experiences. Similarly, few businesses can think of themselves as strictly local or national. Yesterday's few truly transnational corporations are the norms of today's business culture, where transactions are immediate and interdependent, again due to instant communications and our world economy. Even local workforces in the States and Thailand and the other countries in this room need a global perspective. Today's citizens must be prepared to work across communities and countries in order to succeed. Now, I recently heard a speech in the States that was given by a higher education leader who expressed his concerns that our country, that the United States, seems to be disinvesting in what is perhaps this country's most essential product and export, that being a quality higher education. We're currently debating in a period of financial challenge here the value and benefits of a higher education. Is it a private benefit that serves only the recipient of the education, or is it a public benefit that's of value to the community, the country, and the world? As we in the States recognize the need to increase the number of students with a degree or a certificate from a higher education institution, thus making higher education accessible to all of our citizens, we are as a nation also developing uniform standards for all of our K through 12 students so that they're provided with the tools to be certain that when they finally get to a college, they'll succeed. In addition to increasing their capacity for language skills development and math as the fundamental fundamental to logic and critical thinking, we are broadening the national commitment to a moral and economic imperative of positioning our citizens to be able to compete in a global society. In today's global society, we must continue to invest while also seeking to engage with the rest of the world through our shared commitment to quality higher education. Part of that public benefit, as it relates to international education opportunities, is that our colleges and universities, as well as those countries represented here, will play an important role in enhancing international understanding as the foundation for public diplomacy. Again, a critical value in this world of global citizenship. And while our institutions may continue to educate citizens of the world and then see them, like our young friend Yaki, return home, the broader understanding and appreciation will benefit all of us. We can't ignore the overall fiscal realities facing our institutions. In the States, as I said, we are in a period of rethinking our business model that many of our institutions, both public and private, are following. That is controlling costs, increasing productivity and degree production, and perhaps even looking at reducing the time it takes to receive what has traditionally been a 4-year degree. All during this period of international competition, opportunity, and need. How we might balance these real and somewhat competing forces. In the States, 70% of our 19 million students are enrolled in publicly supported state institutions and community colleges. In those institutions, we've seen a rather dramatic decline in financial support as other priorities are competing for public funding in a very challenging financial environment. So healthcare costs, infrastructure improvements, even prison systems and environmental issues, these along with investments in K through 12 education are competing with funding needs for our public colleges and universities when we have a very limited and still declining available public dollars. And we shouldn't minimize the need to continue to invest in research, which brings new knowledge and products to market and attracts the interests of potential global educational partners, including an urgent need to expand research in adaptation to climate change, which is the one risk that so unites the planet that we need to work together on soon. Also, we need to be sure that included among the priorities we're teaching our students are civic engagement and how to live as a citizen of the world. A continued disinvestment in American higher education will no doubt impact international education, as difficult strategic choices are made across public and our independent institutions or private institutions. I raise these points not to rationalize the competing forces confronting many of our institutions, and perhaps your institutions as well, but rather to try to share some of the elements that factor into mutual interests in shaping an environment that can actually broaden higher education partnership opportunities. And many factors go into a cross-national dialogue and the benefits of any relationship need to be mutual. And so at AGB, we encourage institutional leaders and governing boards in the states to ask the following questions about their commitment to international education and partnerships. First, is the international educational experience and commitment that's being considered consistent with an institution's basic mission statement? This is a question that affects all aspects of institutional commitments, academic and financial, and investments in research and faculty development. Is the level of international engagement going to be a significant element of the institution's priorities, or merely just an auxiliary component? Has the governing board of the institution asked to have an enterprise-wide risk assessment conducted as it relates to all international related activities, and are international commitments as rigorously vetted as our other campus initiatives? Also, are the financial implications considered at the policy level by institutional leadership? Financial aid, by the way, for U.S. students have an impact on decisions to study abroad, since so many campus financial aid programs are not transportable when our students travel abroad. Now, I've introduced some of the current challenges that I believe might impact international collaboration, and I've suggested areas of common concerns, and yet international exchanges and partnerships continue to grow in importance, as they should. What information should those institutions that are part of this organization recognize and address as we work to increase education partnerships going forward for the benefit of our citizens and the world? Now, let me share just a few thoughts that might be helpful and perhaps can inform your plans and our discussion. Internationalizing U.S. institutions and higher education is a current priority of the Obama administration and the U.S. Department of Education. Education cooperative agreements and engagement are clearly part of the current administration's overall agenda to strengthen higher education and provide for learning experiences of American students. There's a recognition of the need to prepare citizens for a global business environment. I believe that international higher education partnerships need to be based on the shared and common interests of the partnering institutions. Yet if the partnerships are to be of value to each participating institution, then it's necessary for some due diligence to be conducted in advance. A partnership that's based merely on an opportunity can result in a shorter relationship than either party may desire, with less value for students or faculty. Time, discussion about educational priorities and focus, as well as respective vision of the institutions considering into the partnership are essential variables. Conducting a thorough analysis of mutual interests, including clarity about financial considerations, should be an early and essential step. Governance structures, boards, faculty, and administration should have the opportunity to participate with the governing board, asking some of the questions I've suggested. The most productive partnerships, I believe, build upon the relationship and exchanges of faculty. Faculty from prospective partnering institutions will likely have the clearest perspective of the value proposition of a more formal institutional partnership. International gatherings like this one of faculty, shared academic opportunities, and formal exchanges can build bridges between institutions that will be strong and lasting. It is among faculty that both discipline and overall institutional academic priorities can be shared, shaped, and clarified. Now, while institutions such as New York University have made a commitment to establish a significant campus and presence in Abu Dhabi and Shanghai, and a number of other U.S. institutions have made similar commitments, clearly few institutions in the States have that capacity or really see that kind of investment as part of their mission. But those kinds of initiatives can also be informative to the process and politics associated with international partnership. When U.S. institutions build branch campuses in countries that have established higher education institutions, several policy issues come to mind and need to be considered. Clearly, The institution making the investment has conducted a substantial assessment of the financial risk and opportunity, as well as the reputational opportunity associated with such a significant commitment. But it also raises other questions as well. Might there be some concerns on the part of the U.S. institutions that the institution and the host country are too entrenched to change? This might not impact any of you or any participating countries in this organization, but it does merit consideration. U.S. institutions are looking for mutual benefits from any partnership for students, faculty, and research opportunities. If they perceive that the partnership isn't going to be fruitful, then they may well look elsewhere. Our institutions, especially during these challenging financial times, are driven by entrepreneurial and educational objectives. They want to know what your institutions and educational ministries or governing boards are willing to invest to add value to any exchange program or potential partnership. One last but important area that might be of interest to you. A number of you may be interested in partnerships with institutions that have an emphasis in the research area, or research exchanges. It is clearly an interest to any number of U.S. institutions, but as I listen to American higher education leaders, and as well as faculty at these research institutions, they often comment on their priority being that they are looking for institutions abroad that have state-of-the-art labs and research capacities. Here again, this may not be an issue in your institution, but it might be worth being sure that the equipment and technology needed to attract scholars and researchers from abroad are in place and are of the highest quality, and that the policies related to intellectual property rights between institution and researchers are also in place. Investment by institutions with support from government and the corporate sector, perhaps in the form of a collaborative among institutions and perhaps establishing even a center of excellence, can go a long way towards updating research labs and helping to forge the research partnerships that everyone in this room may seek. These are among the issues that boards and institution leaders are looking at and the questions that they're asking. So in closing, let me say that few of any of these issues are easy. They bring with them policy, financial questions, educational quality issues, as well as fundamental questions about mission. However, as I said, we're living in a new and expanding global community where working together is essential. There are no options. Educational partnership and exchange will contribute to our collective and national agendas, and we need to continue to work together to facilitate those collaborations. So with that, let me close. Again, let me thank you for your invitation to be with you, and I hope we have time for some questions. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate your presentation today. And as academics has been involved in internationalization of higher education in Thailand, I feel that this is a great opportunity because usually when we talk about student exchange program and everything, we talk about within Asian countries, and America is something that Thai students love it. We are talking about Thailand. But the problem that we have been facing in the past is that there are so much difference in terms of tuition, in terms of cost, between Thai university and American university. So if we go for student exchange program, definitely, Thai side would gain, the benefit because your cost is high. Whereas, United States part, American university will somehow hesitate because the cost is very much higher. Okay, so if we send students to your university, somehow they can study the whole program in Thailand. Okay, so that is something that we have to settle. If we want to go on the collaboration, that it will be on one-on-one basis or whatever. Okay. I know it won't be fair in your part, but if you want it to happen, that has to be something that we have to settle. Okay? And second issue is about to enhance student mobility, I would say that the credit transfer scheme is something that we have to talk about. Like students, if they enroll in certain courses that have similar in course description and everything, they can transfer the credit back to the university, the host university or the home university. And another thing is in terms of quality standard. Of course, American quality standard is much better than Asian, okay? And in terms of accreditation, like business program, you have ASAIHL, okay? Most of university has it, but in Thailand, none have got it yet. Sassin, which is the top university, which is has a link with Kellogg, okay? Just recently got it. It's so tough, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So that those are the problems that we have to try to see how to overcome with the support of the government of both American and Thailand. Because we have problem with China. Even we have G2G, in terms of accreditation between universities. With private universities are still suffering a lot. So those are the points that I would like to bring to the meeting. And I think this is a great opportunity for Asian universities to come to United States. This is such a great incident and event. Okay?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing those important issues. I don't know the price differential on tuition. I do know that there are many institutions in the United States that may not be being looked at by some students from abroad, where tuition is far more modest and far more accepting. It's just in my own personal experience, and when you travel abroad, many of the students, many of the academicians have a view of American higher education like our friend Yaki. It's either you get into these 10 or 12 institutions which have very high price tags, or the United States comes off the sheet. So I think we need to be more fully aware, and we need to help be more fully aware of what's available, and to have those conversations and see if we can't bridge the gap a little bit. Thank you for sharing those good points. And maybe our little agreement between AGB and TAGB can begin that conversation. So thank you.